My name is Nico Steves. Podcasts this summer season will run 15 minutes each in a re-release of my book, The Constant Procession, the history of the Virgin Mary since she passed on. I'd like to thank you for your listening to these weekly Constant Procession podcasts, and also for purchasing plus spreading the word about my book, The Very Fine Light, which is available on Amazon.com. This summer I'll also be traveling to complete my next book, and I will be bringing you a few reports from the field about this upcoming book. And so, please keep checking my website, nicosteves.com, as I will be posting blog updates from time to time. By the way, keep me posted on what you're up to in the comments section of my website or via email at nicosteves@gmail.com. And now enjoy installment 2 of The Constant Procession. Why had author Franz Werfel, an author of international acclaim, written this story? Why had it been so well received? I found the book more compelling than the movie. But why, in these horrific days of a world at war, would this intellectual choose to take on a questionable topic such as a human encounter with someone who had died almost 2,000 years before? It is in Europe. The month is June 1940. By then, too many people of the Jewish faith or of Jewish background have lost their rights and freedoms. They are rounded up. Some who resist are killed outright by the German Nazis. Famed Austrian author Franz Werfel, of Jewish background, found himself on the run. He found sanctuary hiding near the apparition site of Our Lady of Lourdes. Desperate to find passage to the United States of America, Werfel and his wife hid in the area for 2 months while trying to find safe passage into neutral Spain. As the days turned to weeks, Werfel, in spite of the predicament, could not help but notice the religious going-ons in this small backwater village. As the Nazi government in Germany became more powerful and evolved into robbing people of their rights, intellectuals and artists who spoke out against the Nazis became the first victims of the regime. These artists and intellectuals became accountable to the Nazis for their influence on the public. Their punishment for unkind remarks and opinions about the Nazis would instill fear into the common folk. As a member of the elite, Franz Werfel had several marks against him. First, because of his Jewish ancestry, and second, he had spoken out against the Nazis. Though of Jewish descent, he had not been actively involved with any religious worship. Werfel had earned membership in the elite social class due to his early creative endeavors. His wife, Alma, also enjoyed membership in this privileged community. But now, as the Nazi power became more mainstream, they demanded Jewish members of society to start wearing the Jewish star on their arm. Members of the elite knew people like Franz would be arrested for their stands against the Nazis. The Werfels decided they needed to get to the United States. Having been before, they knew they would be safe once there. At first they went to France, but once France came under Nazi rule, the Nazis turned their attention to capture and arrest Werfel. The couple realized time had run out. If they could just get to neutral Spain, and then they would be able to get visas to the United States. Armed only with their wits, her jewelry plus manuscripts and musical scores from her deceased first husband, the couple found their way to Lourdes, France. From there, with a good tailwind and a lot of luck, they felt they might be able to get across the border and into Spain and freedom. Headlines in the New York Times in 1940 misreported that Werfel had been killed. This put more pressure on the two as they hid in Lourdes, France, as they attempted to make the delicate arrangements for making the dangerous crossing of the mountains separating France from Spain near Lourdes. They knew this would be their last chance to escape. As the weeks turned to months in the small town of Lourdes, Franz, ever the artist, began to notice the environment around his temporary new home. This place differed from the rich cultural communities familiar to him. He had never seen a place like this before. Men and women from all walks of life, from all stations, populated the village, yet not in the taverns or theaters, but rather they would gather each morning to attend Mass at a church, built right over the top of where the apparition between the Madonna and a young teen happened. These people accepted as fact this strange occurrence, an encounter between the Madonna, the deceased mother of Jesus Christ, and a young teenager, Bernadette Sabayon. As they walked the grounds and studied this grotto, where an other-world being had met a human being, the Werfels recognized that they had found shelter far, far from the world at war, and in another world, far from any place they had been before. Again, with the constant threat of being found, and the cloak and dagger maneuverings to find a way to freedom as they sought alliances of trusted anti-Nazi assistance, Franz must have found a peaceful serenity at this sanctuary to the Virgin Mary, while hiding in his attempt to get out of Europe and to the security of the USA. But just why had these people come here? To his surprise, he learned they had come on pilgrimages to obtain miracles from the spot where the Madonna chose to reach out to mankind. She reaches out to mankind, desiring to provide assistance for helping people better their lives. She encouraged them to consider the ways of how her son lived. Even today, the waters there are considered to have great healing power, and many of the crippled came to bathe in the waters, as well as to pray to her son for healing of mind, body, and spirit. Mrs. Werfel gathered every book she could find to feed her husband's creative curiosity. And so 2 intellectuals, strangers to the lure of Lourdes, came face to face with the lady, who became their hope as they hid in her sanctuary, away from a world looking to kill them. At some point, perhaps his moment of deepest doubt and despair about his future, Werfel, desperate to find that safe passage to Spain, decided to go to the apparition site, this Lady of Lourdes, to pray for his and his wife's successful escape. He partook of the healing waters. Then he made a pledge to the Madonna that if he survived and escaped from the Nazis, he would write the story of the girl, Bernadette Sabayon, who had seen an apparition of the Virgin Mary in 1858. A miracle did occur for the Werfels. After a harrowing escape through the Pyrenees Mountains, they made it to Spain and found safe passage to the U.S. True to his word, Franz Werfel, almost before settling down, wrote the book, The Song of Bernadette. It quickly got published and became an immediate bestseller. And like a rose, it continued to blossom. Hollywood fast-tracked the work and with great speed turned it into a movie. The major motion picture allowed the story to reach audiences all across America. For how curious is it that such a tale of this young girl, receiving the Virgin Mary and the revelations that occurred, became part of America's popular culture in wartime, a time when mothers and fathers, wives and girlfriends waved goodbye to American soldiers going off to fight, to kill one another, deep in the violence of a horrific world at war. The story, crafted in the hands of a master artist like the gifted Werfel, who dedicated himself to telling her story, is compelling even today. Its literary success caught the attention of Hollywood. 20th Century Fox bought the film's rights and with great haste scheduled it to go into production. At first, producer William Perlberg felt very cynical towards the story. However, after he read Werfel's book, he became an advocate of the story and, by extension, the miracle of the appearances of the Madonna in Lourdes. And the American people responded in kind, making it a huge box office success. The movie catapulted actress Jennifer Jones into an Academy Award for Best Actress for her portrayal of the young innocent Bernadette and her encounter with the lady. And so Hollywood became Holywood for a brief moment in time. 1943 became the darkest of times during World War II for the Allies. In the United States, The people needed to find some sort of inspiration in a world that had not yet turned the corner against what had become overwhelming and invincible forces. With the Nazis' continued success in Europe and the Japanese conquests in the Pacific, these Axis powers worked with pincer-like precision towards squeezing the USA into a possible two-front battle. After the horror of the Pearl Harbor attack, the reality of a Japanese threat on the West Coast, and the Nazis' submarines attacking shipping along the East Coast had altered the concerns for all Americans. Running counterpoint, the Madonna resurfaces via a book and movie about the Lord's apparition, uplifting modern man once again, thanks to the popularity of the documented testimonials of faith. In those troubled times, it became a source of inspiration to even the most sophisticated of people who in the first part of the 1940s held so little hope of their own. So it appears that this Hollywood recognition created a renewed interest in her, which came at a time when pent-up demand for new churches occurred as the war came to an end. This answered, at least in part, how the Virgin Mary became so popularized in that post-war building spree from the 1940s into the 1960s. And this is just one of the encounters people have had with the apparitions of the Madonna. I endeavored to research history further. Chapter 4, Surprising Roots. Apparitions of the Madonna, a renowned Jewish intellectual singing her praises, in the resulting movie, recognized with an Academy Award. Quite a series of remarkable events. The encounter by Bernadette Sauvignon is one of the most famous apparitions of the Virgin Mary in contemporary times, and it took place in Lourdes, France from February 11 through February 16, 1858. And the results that honored the Madonna's request to Bernadette became the building of a cathedral, built over the top of the location. It holds up to 25,000 people. And also, as an extension of this cathedral, there are medical facilities that have sprouted up around this apparition site. Over 200 million people have visited. Today, well over 1 million people come every year to honor and pray to Our Lady of Lourdes. Bernadette, after her death, became Saint Bernadette. That is impressive because in order to become a saint, one has to be documented as having performed miracles. Yet at the time, the young teen had to go to court, and she, along with her relatives, held in great scorn. Because in those times, France, and most of modern Europe, found itself in love with the human intellect, and took less and less time to worship God, let alone the mother of the Son of Man. Lourdes, France, is tucked away in the Pyrenees Mountains. Bernadette, then 15, had been out to look for fallen limbs for her parents' fireplace when her first encounter with the Madonna occurred. The apparition appeared to her near a place used as the village trash dump. I marveled at this reality that is documented to be real. A person in contact with someone who had died 2,000 years ago. I had to learn more, so I read Franz Werfel's book, written by a true master who dedicated himself to retelling this unique tale. Within 3 days of her first experience, Bernadette began to have her visions in public. A crowd appeared ready to see the miracle for themselves, but they saw nothing. Bernadette reported that as she went into a trance, she could see, quote, the most beautiful lady and experience a wonderful peace. After the contact, Bernadette would relay what the apparition told her. The lady promised to give them a sign, so the people returned again and again. At a critical sighting, Bernadette started to dig in the dirt like a dog. Everyone thought she had lost her mind. The much-hyped day turned into a disappointment for the crowd, who had been promised some sort of a sign. Confused and concerned and perhaps ashamed by Bernadette's action, her relatives pulled the young teen from the mud and took the girl home. But rather than shame, Bernadette appeared calm and at peace after the paranormal contact. Later she explained her actions. The Madonna told her to, quote, find the water, unquote. After most of the people had left, someone noticed water bubbling up from the very spot where she had dug. It turned out to be a spring. Then a local man, Louise Barrett, known to be blind in one eye, sent his daughter off in secret to gather some of the moist earth from the spring, which he then put over his eye. With great surprise, he started to see through this once blind eye. He ran to the local doctor's office, bursting into an examination session with the news. Though unhappy with the interruption, the doctor, who well knew of the man's blindness, tried to test Lewis using an eye chart. The conversation, according to writer Werfel's book, came to a point where the good doctor asked if he could read the chart. "I can't," the man shouted. The doctor started to smile. But then Lewis continued, "Because I don't know how to read." To his doctor's amazement, a miracle beyond the logic of man had indeed occurred, because this man, documented to be blind in one eye, could now use it once again. Well, this is Nico Steves. I hope you enjoyed this installment. My book, The Very Fine Light, can be found using the title The Very Fine Light on Amazon.com. Please feel free to contact me at nicosteves.com. That's Nikos Steves, Steves.com. If you liked this episode, and for more, share them with friends. Well, this is Nico Steves. Thank you. See you next time.